Welcome back to Finale in the Talks, a podcast of English majors tackling the broad world of linguistics and its importance in the way we live.
Today, one of our listeners asked a question in one of our polls.
User JNT1201 is asking what language acquisition theory we think is the most important in learning a language and why. Before everything and before we answer the question, let us first explain what language acquisition is for the listeners who do not know the meaning of it. Madam Angelica, care to explain it to our listeners?
Would never decline that. So, language acquisition is the process of human learning the ability to comprehend and speak a language, either as their first, second, or third language.
So, meanings aside, you may be asking, what makes this theory so important in learning a language? Well, to put it simply, the reason why we can speak and much more comprehend the language is because of our language acquisition, and these theories can explain how we can naturally do it.
That's right, Miss Athena. We are not magically speaking and understanding a language the moment we are born. Instead, it is a whole process of learning to be able to do this. We can acquire languages in different ways based on these theories. Linguistics is a truly complex and amazing thing, isn't it?
I agree, girl. What makes all this language learning so interesting to us English majors. So I hope the listeners feel the same passion for language as we do.
Truly, Madam Angelica. Before we get lost in track, though, let's go back to JNT's question once again. What do you think is the most important language acquisition theory in learning a language and why? I'll give us a minute break to think about our answers first.
Personally, I think Vygotsky's social interaction theory is the most important among all the language acquisition theories. How about you guys?
Skinner's behaviors theory. How about you, Anika?
It really depends for me. I actually thought of both social interaction and behaviors theory too, but I can't choose between the two. So I think I'll stick with both theories and hear about your insights first.
Well, in that case, let me go first. So, the reason I chose the social interaction theory as the most important among all language acquisition theories is because I believe interaction with people plays a big part in language learning. You know, when we are still children, communicating the with the people around us was part of our learning and an introduction to the world. I've also observed that it is most effective to learn a first language when there is someone who will teach us and demonstrate how words are pronounced and used, as I have seen with my younger siblings, while they learn words from our elders and being corrected in their way of speaking.
What a really interesting take. Please explain your point further as I still have some questions lingering inside my mind.
Social interaction is basically the need of exchange in talking between two people. So children receives more information and learn from different people in their environment. This theory also expanded my understanding by the introduction of the concepts of the zone of proximal development or the ZPD and scaffolding in this theory, which provided a more detailed explanation of how social interaction facilitates language learning. For instance, Vygotsky's concept of CPD highlighted how children can achieve higher levels of learning and language use when supported by others, which aligns with more observations of how my younger siblings improve their language skills through guided interactions. Excuse me. For example, my younger siblings not only learned words from our elders, but also improved their sentence structures when guided through more complex conversation. So this process aligns with Vygotsky's idea of scaffolding, where support is gradually removed as the child becomes more competent.
Okay, wow, that was a lot and very detailed. Although I do agree and applaud your opinion, I would have to say that behaviors theory is the most important language acquisition theory for me. B.F. Skinner contends that language emerges from training and reinforcement of links between environmental stimuli and vocal responses. As a student being molded into a grown adult, I first thought that language and language acquisition was just done because it is what we've used to hear from others, hence us learning from it. However, through knowing and getting to know more about behaviorist theory, the realization of us acquiring a language becomes much more comprehensive to me as an individual. Basically, this theory could be described through three words, which are stimulus, response, and reinforcement, which ultimately is what conditions our behaviors.
That makes so much sense. You have a point about that.
Mhm. Further, according to Skinner, children learn language by imitating and being reinforced for correct responses. One great example of this actually is when our parents or guardians tries to teach us about reading and acquiring such complex words that we aren't quite familiar with yet. Okay, it's always they either try to bribe us with incentives in order for us to learn it faster, which is called positive reinforcement, or we either want to learn the language because we want to avoid the punishment itself, which is also known as negative reinforcement. And as a kid, I've come to master two languages. First is our first language, which is Filipino or Tagalog, then our second language, which is English. Further, I also learned other languages but haven't gotten them to a mastery level. Back on my childhood, my main stimulus, response, and reinforcement is my mother and myself. I want to learn language as fast and great as possible for me to avoid my punishment, which is the negative reinforcement, and for my own self satisfaction, which greatly explains behaviorist theory as an explanation for language and its acquisition for children.
Oh, yeah, I kind of understand it now.
Yes, now I get why you think Skinner's theory is important. That's a lot to learn, but it is very informative.
Yup. Plus, if you guys would notice, behaviorist theory mainly focuses on conditioning and the practice of language for its acquisition, and not through the innate cognitive abilities of children. Something that not all theories do put focus on. Maybe that's why I actually put my bet on this theory.
Wow, you guys are really popping off with explanations right now. And I very, very much agree with the both of you. As I've mentioned earlier, I picked both Vygotsky's social interaction theory and Skinner's behaviorist theory, as I believe they can be related to each other when it comes to a child's language acquisition process.
I've never really thought about it that way. Yes, both theories are quite similar with each other, but isn't it both quite contradictory with each other as social interaction theory talks about a child's social interaction, while the behaviorist theory talks about the conditioning of a child's language development process?
Well, if you put it that way, Miss Angelica, it would be quite contradictory, but there is one thing that correlates these two theories with each other, and that is the environment of a child. For the social interaction theory, a good environment where children can interact with each other must be imposed. The same goes with the behaviorist theory that forces a response with a stimuli. In short, interaction. Both theories teach children how to pick up social cues, behavior, and language through the process of observing and speaking with other people who are more knowledgeable in the language than them. These two theories coexist. Both factors should be present to be able to produce effective learning as a child's social interaction affects their behavior as well.
Wow, I am now enlightened with your argument, as I was quite skeptical at first, but it does make a lot of sense.
Right. To, to prove my point more, I would give an example of this situation. Do you guys remember the case of Jeannie, the feral child who grew up in isolation and didn't know how to talk when she was found with the Child Protection Services? Both theories are present in this situation as the lack of social interaction with the people around her made her behave that way. As a child, she wasn't spoken to even by her parents, and she grew up in an abusive environment that locked her up in a single room throughout her life. Because of this, she has never learned how to speak and how to behave normally, as no one around her taught her how to. She was not able to mimic another person's actions and language mannerisms as there was no interaction involved while she was growing up.
I remember her story. I was quite heartbroken for what happened to her the first time I read her life story, as what happened to her was her parents' fault.
Yes, poor Jeannie. I've heard that she eventually learned how to speak though, but only a few words and without proper sentence construction. What you said about relating the social interaction theory and the behaviorist theory makes sense though. I very much agree.
Thank you. I have really liked both these theories the most among all the language acquisition theories we've learned. Now, Angelica with the social interaction theory, Athena with the behaviorist theory, and I with both of these theories. Do you guys have any conclusions or changes of insights about our discussion today?
I have none. I firmly believe that this session of ours was very insightful and full of knowledge. At first, I really thought that this would result in some deep argument, but I love how we try to explain our own opinions in order for us to come to an understanding.
Yeah, Athena's right. This episode really brings a lot of lessons for all of us, especially between those theories and language acquisition in general. And of course, about us handling our differences in opinions maturely.
Yep, that's it for us. It's really a well spent time full of intelligence, stories, and experience.
Thank you. To conclude our discussion, learning these language acquisition theories and their relation to how people can learn language has made me realize how complicated linguistics can be, especially when starting from a blank slate, with the countless words, meanings, sentence construction, and grammar. It amazes me how easily children can do it in a good environment that would allow them to do so. It also made me realize how social interaction is really important in shaping a child's behavior and intellect, as they learn best from what they see from other people.
Linguistics truly is such a complex tree.
So true. But, well, as English linguists, we'll always do what we can in order to understand and branch it all out.
Correct, madams. Anyway, I think that's it for today's session. Next time, let's delve into another late night talks with Finale in Talks. This is Athena Venetian, your super OA speaker.
This is Maria Angelica TOYOR, your super shy speaker.
And this is Anika TIAMZON, your cool tech speaker. Have a great night, and this is Finale na
Finale
Talks.
na Talks.